Hello and welcome to the Baba Young channel. Now I decided to have a go at some knit material, and the pattern I've chosen to have a go at is this one, the New Look 6301, and I'm going to go at this one, which is A, which is basically exactly the same as B, only it's got a bit of sleeve on it, so I think pattern B shows up a bit better, but with the sleeve, because there's this tie detail in the middle on the waistband. So yeah, that's what I'm going to have a go at, and the material that I'm going to use to have a go at that is this stuff. Let me get that closer so you can see what that pattern is. Now, as you can see, that actually is, I suppose ladies' faces really mainly, or the shoulder part, top part there of the ladies, but generally that's sort of what it is. It's in blue and purple. I like the colour of it with this sort of black part to it, but it's mainly sort of blue and purple, slightly pinkiness in there as well. But yeah, that's what I decided I'm going to go with to make this, as this pattern does actually say just for knits, of which this is. It's a stretch knit. Its actual material is, it's a 95% polyester with 5% spandex, and the width of it is 150 centimetres with a 40% stretch on the width and a 40% stretch on the length. So it is definitely a stretchy material, which is great because that's what I need, a stretchy knit for this. And I've bought quite a bit here. I think is it 3 meters I think I got of this, because on this pattern I have had a quick peek and have a look at it. You've got in 2 sections actually. Effectively you've got a top piece and then you've got a skirt, and then they're sewn together at that middle point where that tie piece is. So yeah, you sort of make top and skirt and put them together by the looks of it. But yeah, that's what I'm making now with this stuff. So I think first off, let's have a look at the pattern and the instructions, so I know what I'm going to be doing, because knits are not a thing that I've really had much experience with. I have made a wrap round out of a stretchy knit, but really other than that I've really not got any experience with it. So again, this is a step up for me to try and do, because it's experience I don't have, so hopefully I'll learn something from doing this. So let's get on, have a look at it and see if I can understand what I need to do. Well, I've got my instructions here and I've had a quick read of them. Don't look too difficult. I suppose really what I've got to do is decide on what size I'm going to be doing. Having a look at the chart on here and doing my measurements. Now, I've always got my measurements written down. I suppose every so often I need to just update that, but if you've got them written down, you don't have to do all your measurements all the time, every time, do you? So I find that quite helpful. So from here, I reckon I'm going to need size 16 on this pattern. This pattern isn't that difficult from what I can see. It's basically a top part and a skirt. And the skirt doesn't look like it's anything more than a circle skirt really, or a half circle skirt. So I'm imagining from what I've read so far, it seems to be that you do the top half and then you do the skirt and then just attach them together. So can't imagine it's going to be too difficult, except the fact that it's in stretchy knit, which I've never really worked with much before, so that's going to be the challenge, I suppose, getting that to work. So I suppose really I ought to get the pattern out and sort out getting that traced and cut out so I can get ready to cut out the material. Now, I have to tell you that I've cheated a little bit. I have already had a look at this and I've already got all my pattern pieces cut out, because I was eager to get started with it and get on with it. So I do already have what I need. So that's piece number 1 cut out. Didn't take me too long, but longer than I want, so cutting all these pieces out is going to take a bit of time. Now I'm sort of pinning them up and according to the plan, and then cutting each piece out because it's stretched. I don't want to be cutting it and then affecting the way the next piece is sitting, so I've got to do it virtually a piece at a time. Now this is the right bodice piece, which is going to sit like that. And I don't know if anybody's noticed, I was cutting it a bit wonky, or seemed to be, but the grain line on this is that way, like that, even though when this sits on there it's going to sit across, so there's a certain amount of stretch even though it's a stretch material anyway. So yeah, seems a little odd that, but I'm sure there's a reason for it. Now because this is a stretch material, all of the my marking pieces, I forgot what you call them, you know, where your matching marks are, I'm going to do little tailor's tacks with them, little bits of material thread to mark them off rather than chalk, because I don't think it's going to stay on here very well, chalk. So piece number 1, just another 7 pieces to go, so better get on with it. So I've managed to get everything cut out, all the pieces are here. Some a little bit more tricky than others, but yeah, it's all done at last. Took me quite a while really, a lot longer than I was expecting. Most of the pieces I've got marked up with my tailor's tacks, I think it's called, but I still got the 2 front bodice pieces to get marked up because these are a little tricky. Having a quick look at the instructions again, there's some pleating to be done on these. Pleating on stretchy sounds a bit odd, but it's there, so I'm going to have to work out how that's going to work and get that marked up before I take it any further really. So next thing really is to have a good read of the instructions properly and thoroughly, so I know what order I've got to do all this stuff in, because at the moment it's just a jumble of fabric really. But yeah, hopefully next stage is start constructing. Well, my very first step is to actually do the pleats that are in the bodice. Number 1, to make pleats in right bodice front on inside, bring broken lines together, stitch along broken lines, press pleats down, baste across raw edge. Sounds simple, but I'm not sure it is. I'm going to go with number 2 because on this, number 1 is that, and it's got 2 or 3 pleats in it, whereas piece number 2 has only got 1 pleat. So I'll have a go with this one first. I don't know if that shows up on there at all or not, but I'll see how it goes. So this is make pleats in left. This is the left bodice piece. I then have a pleat, but one. So I have a pleat, not a dart, because it doesn't fully close at the top end there. And that's what you'll see. I suppose that makes sense. I hope so. I'm going to give it a go. Well, I finally managed to get my darts in there. Not too bad actually, the way they went. As you can see, from the wrong side, you've got this dart in there, and it's been sort of tacked over to hold it in position so it stays over in the right place that you want it once I've actually stitched the lines together. Now, unlike a conventional dart, this doesn't actually go to a point at the end, because when I turn it round on the other side it looks like that. As you can see, so it's like a dart, and the way that piece there had that dog leg on there, that's now vanished as I've now formed the dart, but it's sort of open a little bit at the top there, and then this piece will actually sit like that on me. I know it's not easy to see with this top that I've got on, and then the other piece, which is the other side, as you can see the 3 darts, and you fold it down again, but when you stitch the line you're not stitching to a point, so it doesn't come to a point. You have 2 darts there, and on the other side it looks like if I can get this up there, it looks like that. So you end up these, dear, you end up with these two darts in there on this front piece, but again, it doesn't, you know, you've got this slight tuck here because it doesn't come to a point, and then this piece will sit on that side there like that, and come across the body. Now this one sits on the outside, so you see those two, but the other dart, which sits, I don't know if I can get this to work, let's give it a try. This one will sit underneath, so that'll sit like that, and then this bit, if I can do it without it falling everywhere, will be the other side, and it will sit across. So you don't really see that first dart, but it is in there obviously for shaping, and then this one sits across, so you'll end up with this crossover point. Well, it seems to have worked all right. I'm happy with the way it's gone. It's gone better than I thought it would. I thought I was going to have a lot of trouble with getting these darts in, but actually I think as long as you take your time and follow the instructions, then actually it comes out quite all right. So there we go. That's the first part done. So what's next? Better have a quick look at the instructions. Well, the instructions actually now tell me to do the back. Stitch centre back seam of bodice back. What? Stitch centre back seam of bodice back. 3. Oh, I see. Let me read that again. I'll try harder. Stitch centre back seam of bodice back sections. Finish a sentence. Does help. So I've got number 3, which is the 3. So that's the back was cut in 2 pieces, left and right. So I've just got to stitch that together and then stitch the shoulders together. Well, I've sewn the back seam together. I've got it on here because I'm about to put the shoulder seams on. It says to do the shoulder seams after doing the back seam. Seems a bit odd way, but I know it's the instructions. I better follow them. And then it says about putting some seam tape, as it says on the instructions. Let's have a look. Number 4. With right sides together, pin front sections to bodice back at shoulder seams. To prevent shoulder seam from stretching, pin centre of hem tape along seam line of front shoulder edge. I don't have any hem tape, but what I do have is some of this stuff, and I'm sure most people have seen this stuff. It's that sort of, I think it's meant to be for hemming. When you're hemming a skirt or like a long skirt or something, you can put it around the edge, because obviously with a longer skirt, the wider the hem, the more you're going to have that problem of folding it up and keeping it even. I think this is that sort of hemming tape stuff, sort of woven, and I've got a whole bunch of it. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces, the length of the shoulder seam, and stitch the shoulders together with that, and then that should hopefully act as the point to stop that shoulder from stretching. So that's how I'm going to do it. I hope it works. Should do. I mean, this is also the stuff I think that you can use for like pockets. If you want to reinforce a pocket, or if you've got a pocket that hangs and you want to stop it from stretching, you put that bit in there, I think, sort of thing. So give it a go. Well, I've done the shoulder seams, and just to try and get an impression of this, I've just draped it over me. Obviously the sides aren't done or anything. I've got, where's the back bit gone? That's all over the place. Because I've got it round on this, on top of this dress tunic top thing I've got on. Yeah, so the shoulders weren't too bad to do. I mean, once they're done, it's like, you can see that in there, and then the seam gets pushed to the back of the top, and then these 2 bits will wrap over each other, and sort of like that. I know it doesn't show up very well on this because this top's patterned and blue and doesn't really help, but there you go. Slowly starting to come together. Next part is the neckband I've got to put on. That's got to go from all the way from this edge all the way around the neck and end up over here. So that's a long piece that I can imagine is going to be a bit testing. So that is the next stage. So I think it's slowly working, getting there. Well, next is the neckband, which is this, well, two pieces. I don't know why I'm doing it not in one, but in two pieces. So it's got a stitch along here, then open it out and turn it in half, like so, and then stitch along and turn it into a very long strip that I'll then have to try and turn through with a lot of difficulty. No, I won't, will I? Because it'll be open on one side. Have I? That's right. You don't turn it into a long strip. I do turn it into a long strip. Do you know what you're talking about? Absolutely no idea whatsoever. No. First off, I've got to stitch it along there to make a long band. Then I've got to turn it in half. Yes, I do have to turn it into a long strip. The instructions, just in case I'm losing the plot. Number 5. Stitch cover, stitch centre back seam of neckband, fold band in half longwise with wrong sides together, matching small dots, press, pin. Right, yes, I see. Press, pin, and then pin band to neck edge. Then I have to pin it to the neck edge. So I don't create a long sock strip thing. I have to pin it to the neckband. Right, I get it. I think I understand that. So yes, stitch it along there. I do have to do that bit. Then I have to turn it into half, wrong sides together. Then, hang on, what? Why would wrong sides together? Because that'll make it look wrong. No, that's correct. Wrong sides together. Then I pin it onto the thing, otherwise it'd be right sides together. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. Ignore me. I haven't got a clue. Let's just get on with the neckband, I think. Well, I finally managed to get my neckband done and get it all sewn on. It was a little bit tricky because first of all you've got to stitch it on, so you put it together like that with it turned down, and then stitch it on and then turn it up and do a top stitch near to the edge of where it's been stitched, where your seam is on that. But yeah, it went on alright. I say a little bit tricky because sorry about this, I'm trying to show it. The main thing with this is that on the instructions it says to put the neckband on and then either use a zigzag or a straight stitch to do that, like top stitching on there, to hold it, I presume to hold it in that upward position like that so it sits right. The other thing it says is that when you put it on you have to match it at the seams and notches, and then you have to stretch because this neckband isn't actually long enough to sit onto the top. So you actually from the shoulder seam to the end you actually have to stretch the neckband to fit onto it, and that's what it says in the instructions. So it's obviously meant to be that way. I presume it gives it a little bit of pull to just to give it a little bit of shape. Yeah, it seems to have worked all right. Now, the other thing that I said just then was that the top stitch, it says to either straight stitch or zigzag. I did try zigzag, and you know what? It looked absolutely awful. So I just unpicked the little bit I did and just did a straight stitch. Hopefully, because this is where it is on the top, you're not going to get too much stretching from that. So it's not going to be a worry for popping those stitches. So hopefully it'll be okay. So yeah, coming on nice and slowly, I suppose. But yeah, I think I'm getting there. Next bit is doing the front. Let me get the instructions, have a quick read of it. This is now step number 8. on outside, lap right front over left front, matching centres and notches, having raw edges even, based raw edges together. I suppose that's to make sure that the front, this front section that crosses over, that it's squared up properly, so that when you come to put the skirt bit on, it's not going to be, you know, lopsided. But I better get it matched up, get it basted, and then I'll see how it's sitting. Well, now that I've basted that up, you can sort of see that it's creating that front shape. So when it's side to sewn up, it should actually come together right and have that crossover bit in the right place. So that's sort of come together quite well, actually. I was a bit dubious of how that would work, but I managed to make it work by the looks of it. And that's just, as they call, basting stitch in there. I'll probably leave that in actually once I actually sew it in properly, because I can't see any reason for actually taking it out. And like I say, that's starting to sort of shape it up quite nicely. So next step is the ties, the big tie pieces that come round. That is the next bit to do, so I better get on with it, because it's taking forever. Well, I've got my two straps made, nice long straps. They go supposedly from the back and fold round and come and tie at the front, but they're inside out. Now that I've stitched them up, I've just got to turn them through the right way, like turning a very narrow sock through. Pain in the backside, but better get on with it. And there we have two waist tie bands that I just need to press to make the seams nice and crisp, and they're ready to sew on then. Well, I've got my ties all so, well, they're not sewing, they're just basted in, just a basic stitch just to hold them in place where I want them. And now I can sew my side seams up and get them done, and this top is looking nearly done. Well, as you can see, I'm virtually done with the top. The only thing I haven't put on yet is the sleeves, but everything else is together. As you can see, what I've got is I've got these two long tie pieces that go around the back and then come round at the front and tie up. I can get them straight, and you just tie these up round the front, and that's quite a nice look. It seemed to work out quite well, actually. I was a bit worried I wouldn't get them straight or anything, but they look fine to me. And as you can see on this, there is that bit of those darts that were there on this section here. This material is quite busy, and the colouring as well, you can't really see that, but it does create this sort of ruching up. And the other piece, which is on the other side, is this bit. The dart was in here, and again with this neckband having to be stretched, all that seems to just given it that bit of shaping that's sort of hopefully needed to make it shape around the body a bit better. And then, like I say, do the ties up, and it's coming on quite nicely. Quite liking this, really. Now the next stage, actually, as far as the instructions go, says to do the skirt section next, but I'm actually going to do the sleeves because I want to actually finish the top so it's a complete section on its own, and then all I have to do is the skirt. So next up is the sleeves. Well, I finally managed to get the top finished, got both the sleeves on, and effectively this is all done. I mean, it's one completed piece. The only thing I've got to do now is the skirt, which is basically two pieces, a front and a back. Sew it together, hem it, and then stitch it to this, which seems quite simple. I suppose all the work, or the majority of the work, is in this top section, and it sits naturally on the waistline, on the natural waist, or at least my natural waist for this size, so that I'm quite happy with that. So the skirt will actually fix on at that point and sit from the natural waist, and as the skirt really is, what I can see, nothing more than I think basically a half circle skirt, then it'll sit from there and drop and hopefully have quite a bit of flow to it. So that is the top all done. Let me just tie this up again. So wrap it round the back and then onto the front. And there we go. Top section completed. Better get on with the skirt so I can get this all done. Well, I've managed to get the top and the skirt done. The skirt wasn't too bad. The hemming, well, that took a long time. I mean, I think the darn thing's longer than the 7, so it took a while just to pin the thing up. But there we go, I managed to get it done. Now on the instructions it actually says to do the hem last. And I can understand because there's a bit of weight in this material, so it's going to drop very slightly, but it is a stretch material, so I'm not really worried about that. You know, if it was a 100% cotton material or linen or something that might stretch out and be a problem, then of course you'd hem it at the very end once you'd hung it for a little bit. But no, I think that'll be just fine as it is. Just got to attach it to the top. So what I'm going to do is turn this inside out and then match it up, you know, facings face to face, inside, inside, outside, whatever you call it, you know, make it so it all meets up as it should do, then stitch round, and there we go, skirt is attached to the top. Except in the instructions, what it actually tells me to do is do 2 lines. Do one to stitch and hold it on, and then do a second one further up to make, what's it called? A waistline casing. And this is because you're meant to put some elastic in there to help to draw it in around the waist. Now, my shape, I've got narrower hips and a thicker waist, so I don't think I'm going to need that. So I'm probably going to leave that waist elastic waistband casing out. I'm not going to put that in because I don't think I need that elastic. But of course, if you do have bigger hips and a narrower waist, then certainly by all means put that channel in for that waistline casing and put the elastic in there to help draw it in a bit more. But then I think with this, once the skirt's on, with the tie bands, I reckon that will help put it in enough to make it sit alright anyway without having to put the elastic in. But yeah, I'll give it a try and see how it goes, and hopefully it'll fit just nicely. So here we have it, the finished garment. It's actually managed to come together. I've got the skirt piece attached to the bodice and all done up. There you go, looks quite nice, I think. Well, let me get it on and then I can have a quick look at how it actually sits on me. So, and there we go. I think it fits quite nicely actually, better than I thought it would. I was expecting there to just, I don't know, not sit right, because I've never done anything like this, never made anything that's from stretchy material like this before. Waist tie on there. Now on this one it does say when you're putting the skirt piece onto the bodice, to, as you do that process, you put a channel in there for some elastic and then elasticate the waist to some extent. But I decided not to do that. I didn't think I didn't feel that I needed it. See, I've got narrow hips and a thick waist, as it were, so I didn't feel that it would actually work. And besides, the tie bit, which you can see comes out at the sides and then it just wraps over each other on the back, comes round and ties at the front. To me, that's enough to bring that waist in a little bit and to hold it in place, and that fits just fine because it is all stretchy. So there you go. So yeah, I think it worked out quite nicely, and it's folded over quite well. I mean, I've obviously got it right because that's in the centre where it folds crosses over, which was always a worry of mine, that I'd have it like skewed off one side or another, but it seems to come out all right, and yeah, fits quite nicely. Got quite a bit of drape to it, so yeah, a very lovely dress, and it seemed to come out very well, and I'm very, very pleased with it. So, you know, very nice. Now, when I was putting this together, I did have a thought, and I thought that when you were making the top and the skirt, they were basically like 2 separate items. So I thought, actually, you could make them as 2 separate items, like a separate skirt and a separate top. And that is exactly what I've done. I've got a skirt and basically just used a skirt pattern and put a waistband on there and just elasticated it with some wide elastic on the top there, and that creates a skirt. And also the top, because the top piece, I finished top piece all in one. So there we go. You also have a top on its own with, again, just made a waistband and put some elastic in there to make that fit. So basically what you've got is a dress or a skirt on its own, or a top, which, as you can see, I think it's come out quite well. And it does sit quite high up, sort of does sit nearer to that natural waistline, but it's got a nice thick waistband. I think with the waistband that I put on here, be careful about how tight I make this elastic, because I do have to get it on and off over my head, so if I make it too tight it's a bit difficult, but it seems to be alright. And you know, it's still got the tie piece on there, which I think helps make it, helps set it off, I think, and make it look nicer. Fold over. And again, I managed to get it nice and centred. So all in all, yeah, 3 garments from one pattern, and I think they've all come out really well. So there you have it, the new look 6301, just for knits. And I think it's come out quite well. Well, I've actually enjoyed doing it, and I've effectively made 2 garments, haven't I? I've made it twice because I made the dress, and then I thought, well, I can have this as separate, so I made the skirt and the bodice, and I've got them as separate. So I've made 3 outfits in one from that pattern, and I've actually really enjoyed doing it, and I think I've learned quite a lot from doing it, because I've never made anything with this sort of stretch material before. It's absolutely new to me, and I did have some teething problems at the beginning, and I didn't think it was ever going to come together, but I did manage to get it worked out, and I've managed to get 3 garments made, and I've really enjoyed doing it. So yeah, a fun project, and 3 outfits to boot. So there you go, what more can you say about it? Well, thank you for joining me on this video, and I look forward to joining you on my next video. Bye!